Hello, my name is Jesse, I'm a costumer, and welcome back to another Jaskier video. We are finally here, the final video in this series, the Epaulettes. I feel like I've been talking about this for months, but it's finally here. We're finally putting these guys together. So yeah, that's what we're doing today. So first thing is first, I'm going to be tracing off a pattern, making a pattern from this because it is just a little calico mock-up. It's pretty much there. There's just a couple of tweaks that I want to do, particularly because of how thick the fabric is going to be once I mount this to the drill. Just something I learned from when I was assembling the jacket. I ended up having to let it out quite a bit more than I thought I would, just because of how thick the seam allowance ended up being, and the turn of cloth just didn't work out. So, I mean, it worked out, it fit, but there were some unforeseen adjustments that need to be made. So we are accounting for that. We're going to be making a little bit more, adding a little bit more seam allowance, and we're also going to be having a little bit more of a hem for when I turn this up and top stitch it, because that is the final thing that I need to do. Not the final thing. The final thing is the trims. So there is a couple of things that I am going to be adjusting for this. I think, although I made the jacket body ribbon and lace, I think because of the shape of this, I might actually be using bias and foiling that instead of the ribbon. And the main reason for that is because it's quite an awkward shape. It's a very round shape, and I don't think I'm going to get that by using such a rigid trim. The lace will be fine, but the solid ribbon section, satin ribbon section, is what I'm going to be, I foresee. I have a feeling I will be changing it to bias, but we'll see how we go when I do cut these out and I do paint the trims and just see if it works out. But yeah, after that, we are really in the final stretch, because the last thing that I'll need to do once I get these guys on the shoulders, I will be putting the trims on the cuffs and, of course, the trim around the collar of the jacket. And that's the last thing. This guy is very close to be finished, and I'm excited. I'm excited to put this on, put all of the costume on, and I can't wait to show you guys. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. Hello and welcome back. Everything's done. Shirt, pants, jacket. So let's just get into it. So I'm just going to go through very quickly the construction and what went wrong, what worked, and of course what I would do differently. So yeah, we're going to start with the epaulettes. So as you can see, they are exactly the same as what I did with the calico, and made the pattern for that. There is a front and a back side, so it did make there was a difference, and it was important. So, yeah, not much to say about that. So that came together really well. I didn't anticipate the turn of cloth when I was assembling this. I should have remembered how bulky the drill and the brocade was to work with, and anticipated that when I was mounting this. But all things considered, it turned out quite well. I clipped the seam allowance along the curves, and I herringboned them all flat, and they were pressed open. So all things considered, it holds itself really well. It's very strong and well shaped. So yeah, I'm happy with that. The trims, that was a bit of a journey, because basically what I tried to do was I tried to use the trims that I was using for the rest of the jacket, the ribbon. So these are all satin ribbon. And the thing about ribbon is it is rigid. There's no movement to it at all. And what I'm working with is a three-dimensional curved object. So trying to apply a trim like that, it was never going to work. So what I should have done in the first place was I should have used bias for all of this jacket in the first place, but we can't go back now. And yeah, what I basically ended up doing was cutting some. Well, I had to buy some satin and make my own bias, because black satin bias there wasn't any in stock in any of the stores that I went to when I was trying to do this little quick fix. So that was a whole nother journey. But basically, what I did was I just bought some satin fabric, just as little as I possibly could. Cut some strips along the bias and made some of my own with this little tool. So for anyone who's not familiar with it, this is a little bias tape maker. They come in a few widths. This is a 12 millimeter. And yeah, you just run it through with an iron, and you press these little folded edges into it, and you can use to bind seam allowance, raw edges, hems. It's a really useful little bit of hobby. But what I was using was for going around the curve of this shape, because it has a very natural give to it, which makes it ideal for all those other applications. So yeah, the funny thing about that was that I needed it to be 9mm like the rest of the ribbon. So I needed to carefully fold it just another 3mm to get it to this point. Well, to this point rather. And it worked. It was just really tedious. Really tedious to do. So I won't be repeating that ever again. But it turned out quite well. So, little victories. Yeah, I'll talk about this actually. So there is I didn't realize when I was planning this out that how the trims, I have to angle it like this so you can see. I thought that they were all evenly spaced. Like they were all evenly spaced, and they were quite wide at the neckline, but the trims overlap each other at the top, which I just thought was interesting, because that's something that I didn't pick up until I was actually assembling this. So just a little interesting thing, because I think I nailed the proportions actually. I remember when I was when I was laying this out, and I was sort of pinning and seeing what looked good and how much spacing I needed for these. Yeah, I came to notice that there was the reason that they were was so narrow at the neckline, and there was both evenly spaced openings on either side of the trims, was just because there was a very tasteful little overlap with the ribbon. So yeah, that's a little extra thing. Yes, and of course, So after I got those trims attached, I just machined them on. I did have to hand stitch the lace on though, just for ease. Like it was too, I was having a hard time actually getting it to sit straight on the edge. So this gave me a little bit of leeway to just very nicely distribute it across the curved edge. So yeah, that was the trims, and of course we've got attaching it to the shoulder. So these were all joined by some, I don't know if you can see this, daisy chains. So it's joined in about 6 points on either side of the shoulder. So we've got some 2 near the neckline, 2 on the back, and 2 at the front. The ones at the front are about 5 centimeters away from each other, and it's easier to find a point of reference on the front than it was the back. It was a bit of doing it by eye for the center back section. But all things considered, it turned out quite well and it's pretty symmetrical. But I did actually need to attempt this a few times. So I make it look easy with the footage that I recorded, but there was quite a lot of trial and error with getting this to sit where it needed to. So for a lot of this, I was attaching it at one point, taking it off, putting it on me, seeing how it sits, putting it back on the mannequin, and so on and so forth, just to make sure that it sat properly. And once I got the one side on, it was a matter of replicating that and maybe adjusting to any discrepancies in my shoulders or in the fit of the jacket. So it's pretty symmetrical and good enough for me. So the other thing is the trims. And not a lot to say about these guys. So the sleeve, there it is. I kind of just whip stitched these guys to the neckline and to the cuffs of the jacket. That's all there was to it. I did end up cutting the trims in half. So there's a little bit of excess left over. Yeah. And yeah, it turned out quite well. I was expecting that it would fray and it would break apart as soon as I cut this away from the rest of it, but it held itself quite well. It probably had a lot to do with the glue because it was foiled before I cut it, so that definitely had something to do with it. And yeah, just whip stitched around the curved and all around the neckline, and the sleeve was same. But I just something to note. I did add a little bit of a overlap in the cuff. So if I did need to let out the sleeve for whatever reason, I still have a bit of trim on the cuff. So it would save me having to refoil and do some more lace around the cuff because I had to let it out. So that's just a little costumer thing. Having another thing I could have done was just have an extra roll of trims with the costume if something did break or I needed to repair anything. Either or is perfectly acceptable. So that's just something I thought was a good idea, just in case, because who knows when I will be going to a convention and I may need to let this guy out. Who knows? I hope not. God, I hope not. So yeah, let's just put this guy on. God, I've delayed this enough. And you'll also notice that I've taken out all the basting and catch stitches for the center back pleats, so they are free. Ooh, that is cozy. Okay. So, sorry. Here we are. It's still very difficult to move, but the shoulders are so pretty. I guess it's as good a time as any to go over what I would do differently now that it's all finished and I have no intention of making these corrections. Epaulettes. So, I think if I was to attempt this costume again, I would definitely consider all of the other elements as I was doing it. So like I was saying before, when I came to the ribbon and the shaped section on the epaulettes, I really should have used a trim that would give and ease onto curved shapes like I needed it to. So if I was to do this again, I would definitely use bias instead of the satin ribbon, with good reason. But that being said, maybe I would have gone with a wider ribbon to accommodate a 12 mil strip of bias. So yeah, that's just one thing. Another, I think I would have cut. This isn't the jacket, mind you, but the shirt I've got underneath. I probably would have cut it with a square collar, just because a little bit more period accurate. Yeah, the shaped collar I wasn't super grabbed by, but it does. I'm happy with it. It does okay, and I've got that tasteful bit of. Oh, I haven't shown you the cuffs. Oh, gotta pull them out actually because I just realized that they weren't poking out of the jacket. Look. Yes. Yeah, you trust me. I'm wearing the pants. What else? You know what? Seeing it like this, I'm having a hard time pointing out things that I don't really like with the costume, just because I seeing it all together finally, and it's all got this kind of it's all very it's all very harmonized. I'm really yeah, no, I'm happy with this. I'm really happy with this. I was hoping I hope that I can show people at a convention. I'm really excited to show this guy off. Because yeah, I am truly proud of this project. It's strange coming to an end. Yeah, what am I gonna stress about now? What backwards ass costume am I gonna obsess over next? I don't know, but God, yeah, I've got nothing bad to say about this now. um, I actually one thing. Turn of cloth. I should have when I was making the epaulettes, I probably should have just mounted um two sides as I was assembling it, and just with turn of cloth, sometimes when you turn something through and it's creating a three-dimensional shape, you end up like with a bit of excess fabric on the underside, because if it was allowed to hang freely, it would, because technically if you had two shapes like this that are cut exactly the same, this side will be a smaller shape technically because it's the inside piece. It's going to be cut smaller. So just with that really horrible definition of what turn of cloth is, that's what I would have done for the epaulettes, because it wasn't a problem that I couldn't solve on the fly and just make adjustments to it. But if I anticipated that from the get-go, I think I would have had an easier time in general. What else? I'm not going to make something as tight as this again. Tell you what. I don't know how to end this now. Oh, I know. So, I'm going to show you how much trim I used in the ribbon and the lace. I was going to try and keep the scraps of the foil, but that just became too messy to keep just for a bit in the video. So, I used about 30 meters of ribbon. So this is it. This is there's little bit left over. actually, and I did use a lot for the sampling process. So yeah, 30 meters sounds about right. And the lace, I got about 20 meters of this. I have an extra roll that I think I'm going to leave with the costume, one that I didn't actually use. So this is it. These are all trims for this freaking jacket. Yep, that's the video. That's the series. It's done. I can move on with my life. Bayonetta 2023. I don't know. Maybe. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Thanks everyone who stuck with it for the series. Yeah, the series is over. It's done. So yeah, thanks for everyone who stuck with it and watched it all the way through. It's crazy. It's crazy to me. Yeah, like, comment, subscribe. See ya.